Conservation Trust. Sorry I didn't do that right off the bat, I just forgot. The other board members, who most of whom are here, but when I mention your name, if you could stand up, please. Cliff Smith, Dick Perkins, Don Rising, Susan Crane, Carol Gumbart, John Sangirbano, Eve Donahue, Margie Lynch, Janet Moffett, Alan Fierce, and Carol Sorrow. And I know Carol is not here this evening. So these are the folks that I'm lucky enough to work with. It's really a great board. It's worked extremely hard in the last year. And that's part of what I want to share with you is kind of a year in review. I'll move through it as quickly as possible. So first thing we want to talk about is, that's not a good sign. Okay, the Stow crew, our volunteer stewardship outfit for the trust. The properties served this year included Fieldstone, Calusdian, Leggett, Red Acre, Stow Town Forest, and Carver Hill as an assist capacity. The Sorrow property, Whitney Fields, and the connection with Captain Sargent. The work completed included storm damage cleanup, and there was a lot of that. If you remember back after some of those winter storms, one in particular, where essentially all the trails in town were impassable. And so it was a tremendous amount of work that was put into getting those up and running again. Invasives removal, which is increasingly important in the age of climate change. Tree cutting and general maintenance of the over and understory forest landscape. In 2019, we have big plans for restoring access to the Shepherd Memorial Woodlands. That's a top priority. And establishing a more formal property stewardship program. Anyone who's interested in that, see Margie Lynch. So this is a part of the trust that we're very proud of and very appreciative of. 23 different people volunteered as part of the Stow crew this year. Many people multiple times. And so for that, I just, on behalf of all the directors, just want to say thank you for your good work. Let's have a hand for the Stow crew. Now for a couple of the events. Bike for the Woods, which is a really fun event. And there are people having a good time, getting outside, getting some exercise, some fresh air, some sun. And that is an event. Keep in mind that the trust is an all-volunteer local land conservation organization, so everything happens through the time and efforts of people donating their own time to make things happen. And so I won't recite all of the names on this list, but please appreciate all of the people involved here, and most specifically the race director, Chris Spear. So let's have a hand for the folks who made that. And then on to Run for the Woods. And sadly, at least for now, this was the last year for Run for the Woods. After a 20-year run, is that right, Janet? 20 years. And so if any of you are interested in carrying it forward, or if you know someone who might be, that's really what we need is another group of people who have the time and energy and excitement in that particular event to carry that forward, to get that, to keep that going again. It saddens all of the directors that we're going to have to take a time out, apparently, with that event. It's been a really great one over the years. And so for that one, again, a lot of dedicated volunteers who give an awful lot of time to make that happen. This is the list here, again. And similarly, with the Bike for the Woods, the director plays a really important role. Ames Coney has been the race director for many years, and before Ames, Kendra McDowell. So let's have a hand for all those folks and make that happen. So now to look at a couple of the projects that we advanced or finished this year. This was an incredible year for conservation in Stow, for the Stow Conservation Trust, for the town of Stow's conservation efforts, and for the two of those in collaboration especially. And we'll be talking a lot more about that. But, I'm proud to say every one of the projects that I'm about to talk about was a real collaboration, a public-private collaboration. So the first one, the Leggett property. And so this is on Red Acre Road for anybody who may not be familiar with it. Property's roughly 50 acres. It's shown in pink. Did I say Leggett? Cornelius, sorry. The Cornelius property. So for anybody who might not be familiar with it, it's 50 acres, fronts on Red Acre Road, critical connecting piece, absolutely critical connecting piece. And this is the piece, for those of you who lived in town for a while, know that this is the piece that was once proposed for a 40B development. 40B is affordable housing, the provision in state law that allows a affordable housing prospective developer to override local zoning and put a much more dense development pattern on the ground, proposed. And that's what was proposed here. 30 units of housing was proposed here. It was cooperative housing. There was going to be a 60-car parking lot fronting on Red Acre Road, very much like a train station or something like that. Really out of character, and the neighborhood, I give the neighbors down on Red Acre Road a lot of credit for responding, and also for the town, municipal government, and the trust for all responding to oppose that. And there was we'll skip all the details, too many twists and turns, but suffice it to say that that development was pushed back. And for many years, because the owner of the property, Marilyn Cornelius, while the development that was proposed was deemed to be unacceptable from a conservation perspective, as a private landowner, it was unfortunate what happened to her through that process. So many of us continued to monitor that property. Kathy Sferra and I, in particular, stayed pretty close with that landowner, talked to her regularly. She moved from Stow, Mass. to Stow, Maine, true story. And the price started to come down. It was unrealistic for a long, long time. And when it came down to $450,000 as an asking price for those 50 acres, we decided to jump on it. And the Stow Conservation Trust put up to $25,000 at risk that was necessary to secure that opportunity under a contract, those favorable terms. And so that working with the town of Stow, that could be brought to town meeting for town meeting voters to consider. And when they looked at this opportunity and reminded themselves that they had already validated the importance of this property years ago, town meeting voters supported it. So particularly in the age of climate change, this is a very, very important piece because it's about creating a connected network of conserved lands. So much of climate change response for nature is going to be about helping plants and animals shift around to find more comfortable locations. so that they can have an opportunity to continue thriving in the years ahead. So whether it's a wildflower or something like a bobcat, or no surprise, what we've actually seen, essentially walking through the Cornelius property, was a black bear. Caused a lot of commotion, not surprisingly, in our little town. And then there's another living thing that will also benefit an awful lot from these lands being conserved, and that's all of us. So very important property, great to get it done, and working in partnership with the town, long-standing priority.
Bob,
Yes,
could I make my comment here?
yes, please.
I'm Cynthia Perkins, I'm on the Stow Affordable Housing Trust. And so we've had a part to play in this property as well.
Yes,
And I just want to acknowledge Bob and Kathy Sparrow for kind of orchestrating behind the scenes this possibility for this property, as well as not 40 or 60 units of affordable housing, but 6 units of affordable housing. And it is, again, that partnership, and it's a fantastic way that I think the Housing Trust is feeling that we're achieving part of our goal for the town of Stow as well. Now, the thing about this project that's so wonderful, and then I really have to acknowledge, again, Bob and Kathy, and also Mike Kopsinski, there was a lot of neighborhood input. And this was way before it was public, and our lips were sealed, but there were meetings going on, and neighbors like Kathy Leonard and Tom, and neighbors right in that area came together and had their input into what they want in, as far as the affordable housing there. And they continue to come to our meetings. So for us, it's like, we're not seeing the not in my backyard syndrome. We're seeing like, oh great, in our backyard, we're going to have some input, and we're going to have open space, and we're going to have new neighbors, and we're going to have this community happening. So I want to acknowledge the Stow SCT for getting it started and putting the first money up, and I think that's how it worked. And just one last thing. Last year, Bob, Rand Wentworth, on a side conversation I had with him, I just mentioned I was on affordable housing. He said, in the state of Vermont, when public funds are used to put land into conservation, they always put aside something for affordable housing as well. I'm not sure if I have that exactly right, but I said, why not? And then turn around and find out about this project and how grateful we are for that collaboration.
terrific.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Cynthia. I really appreciate hearing that, because I did gloss over that in my brief description. Great to see those two interest groups working together on this particular project. Yes, Pam.
Bob, one of the things you mentioned, all these benefits of the property, but when it was on Concom a long time ago, I remember, doesn't this property sit over one of our major aquifers in town?
Another very good point. Yes, it's actually, I think, the most productive aquifer recharge area in the town. So very, very important. Yeah, and it's now protected forever, and we created a modest amount of affordable housing as well. So it's a great project. So then, of course, the other big thing for us last year was the farms. And Cornelius, that opportunity in many ways came up at the worst possible time, because we barely had enough money to be able to put up it, and especially at risk. And the bandwidth part of it was huge. And I know that Kathy and those from the town are in absolute agreement on that. Doing all of these in such, I think we had 4 closings in June, if I remember right, which was something I don't think I'd even want to do again. So, but it was really wonderful. So the farms, 2 or 3 years ago, the trust conceived this concept of getting behind an initiative to protect farms in Stow. We really thought that A, they were super important in terms of contributing elements of quality of life that we all appreciate. B, that they were threatened now and would likely be even more threatened in the years ahead. And C, that might be the activity that would resonate with the local population and really be sort of, if we had our finger on the pulse of this community of what they would respond to when asked, it was to protect their farm base. And that is exactly what happened. And I'm really, really proud to say that. So, you know, I won't go into my usual 10-minute diatribe. You'll be glad to know that. But, you know, I'll just say that you know, farms are part of who we are. It's part of what Stow is. It's part of what we've been, and it's part of what we want to be going forward. It's a hugely important part of what Stow's identity as a community. And so we had two farms that for completely different reasons were threatened. Their future was uncertain. With Small Farm, we had the longtime owners, Dwight and Barbara Seipler. Barbara sadly had passed away, and Dwight was planning to retire. And the future of that as an agricultural operation was very much up in the air. I know we have at least I think we have the new farmers here tonight of Small Farm. Could you stand up and be appreciated, please? Great to have you here. And so that was a super important opportunity, beautiful piece of property, just a really beautiful place down on Gleasondale Road. I don't even need to say anything, I'll just go through the photos. We all love it. And then at the same time, for a completely unrelated, different reason, Carver Hill Orchard. The longtime farmer there, Chuck Lord, had been very, very badly injured in a tractor accident, tractor rollover, and the future of that farm was very much in question as to what was going to happen there. And similarly, a very beautiful property contributed a lot to what Stow is as a community. It's also a property that had been in the same family for upwards of 200 years. You really think about how long that is. It's what, 8 generations? Close to 10? And so we sort of sat down and said, so what are we going to do? We've got two very important properties. No one was going to debate whether they were important, but they were happening at the same time. And for a all-volunteer local land trust in a town, a community of less than 7,000 people, that was a pretty daunting moment. And so what we did is we did what we always do, which is we got the public-private collaboration going. Each entity, the town government and the local land trust, private land trust, each has distinct abilities. And when you put the two of those together, you really have maximum ability, and that's what we were able to do. That and the community responded. So we took it to the Community Preservation Committee. Is there anyone here from the Community Preservation Committee? That's too bad. We had at least a couple at the presentation earlier today. So the Community Preservation Committee played an incredibly important role in the protection of both of those farms, and I want to make sure everyone knows that. Kathy Sfera, the town's conservation coordinator, and I, representing the trust, went before them, and we asked them for $1,675,000. We needed $2.4 4 million overall, including all of the costs. And we knew that the figure we were asking them for was pushing them about as far as they could possibly be pushed. Keep in mind, both of us had been chairperson of that committee previously, so we knew a lot about how much funds they had and what other competing priorities they had. And to their credit, they grilled us with a lot of tough questions, but they then voted unanimously to support that. And that was really what created a foundation under that and gave us the confidence to move forward with a very ambitious fundraising effort. So then we started to get going. I asked a graphic artist at where I work at Mass Audubon, a woman named Kristen Foresto, if she would think about developing a logo. And this is what she came up with. We quickly turned that into a bumper sticker. There are a lot of bumper stickers around town. There are a lot of them on the parking lot tonight. If there are some on the table, if any of you don't have one and would like one, because this initiative is continuing. We, with the help of Ann Carley, we said we needed a thermometer of sorts, specific for this fundraising effort. It was a Herculean fundraising effort. Collectively, nearly $625,000 needed to be found through state or federal grants, private fundraising, or private foundation, private individual fundraising, or private foundations. And so this is what Ann came up with. And Ann, are you here? Yep, great. So let's have a hand for Ann. This was terrific. She came up with the perfect design here. Shortly after that, we called it the Appleometer. Very endearing term, the Appleometer. The Appleometer got blown down in a high wind event, which was one of the few setbacks we had during this whole thing. But it was kind of incredible when I heard about it. And I went down right away, and sure enough, it was flat. And so then we developed hats, the concept of the hat. And Taylor Clark, you're here, right? Would you please stand up? He was key to developing the hat. Really important piece. At the time, it was a really important. We were sort of getting our momentum, and that hat looked really great on cute little kids and entire families. Sorry for the poor quality of that, but I really wanted to include that. And it was even shown out in Utah. That hat moved around. It definitely got around. We thought about T-shirts, but that idea was rejected. We developed lawn signs, 2 different versions of lawn signs. We contracted for a banner across 117 and had a big matching fund campaign. You all remember that? We thought about T-shirts again. We got very fortunate with some amazing media coverage. Really, really amazing. I mean, this was the kind of stuff you dream about. I picked up the Sunday paper that morning, and coffee never tasted so good that morning, because look at that. That's the Metro West section. And our story is essentially the entire cover page. Really amazing. And as the direct result of that media coverage, we got gifts from 11 states, including as far away as Texas and Montana. And it was really, really amazing. And that's when things started getting really exciting. We asked the farms in town for farm selfies, and that was kind of fun. And we got some great things back for those. Similarly, we asked certain individuals in town for their own first-hand endorsements. And so I have to tell you, I'm really proud of that PowerPoint slide right there. It only took me like an hour, but it's a good one, and it was a lot of fun. And so in the bottom right-hand side are the Stow Daisies, Girl Scouts, and that was right outside here. That was right on the other side of this wall, essentially. And all of them were great, and they were all really important because they were people expressing firsthand how much farms meant to them. And in some ways that was more important than anything we could say. We got a local brewer, the Battle Road Brewery in Maynard, with Greg Hill as the owner of that, who stepped up to create a Stow Farm Session Ale, and to host us for a wonderful event there. We had a fundraising effort at Not Your Average Joe's, which became not our usual funding source. And it was just an unusual idea that they would give us, 15% of checks for that month. And so a whole bunch of us ate at Not Your Average Joe's for that month. And this was really an amazing effort. So I want to express as clearly as I can just how much I appreciate the community responding. Everything had to happen just right, and it did. We raised something like $370,000 from Eve is nodding, so I know I'm in good standing there. In working, we had the community preservation funds, which, as I said, was the essential foundation for the whole thing. And the trust directors drafted at least a dozen foundation grant proposals. Each of them were a chore by themselves. And we ended up getting maybe 4 of them funded. So there was a nice chunk there as well. And then the culmination of that was Kathy Sferra submitting a grant application for state land funds, formerly self-help. And the state came through at the last minute with $275,000. And so because of that, we were able to get it to the finish line. And I just really, very sincerely just want to say thank you to all of you for helping make that possible. Thanks very, very much. Those 2 farms are now protected forever, and we had a couple that had been protected previously: Shelburne Farm, Applefield Farm, and a very small portion of Honeypot Hill. And so there are really only a couple left that we really need to focus on. It's within reach. That goal of protecting our agricultural base is definitely within reach. So we'll hear more on that going forward. So next, we want to present a couple of recognition awards. And so for the first group, this is for, especially given what you just heard. You heard sort of into the kitchen about a campaign, and so much of it was about communications. And so I want to ask Janet Moffett if you would come up. And Janet is our point person on the board for communications. And so she is going to present the recognition certificates to the 3 recipients, 2 of which are here tonight.
Thanks, and as Bob says, it's SCT is 100% volunteer. So looking around the room, what's really exciting is to look at every table and to know that at every table somebody has done something. And if you're sitting there thinking, oh, well, I haven't done much, that little bit that you've done makes such a difference. So there's people like Tom Porcher that we know after a big snowfall is going to report in about Red Acre Woods. Greg Troxel, I know, will show up at every event and take photographs. Many of the photographs you saw here were thanks to Greg. And so everybody around, Sandra came in on the fundraising and Fall Fest and put in a huge amount of work. So I hate to point out a few people because other people might sit there and go, but I helped. But whatever you did, whether it was big or small, was huge to make this year the success Bob just talked about. And the 3 people we want to recognize this year have been working for years behind the scenes for Stow Conservation Trust, and our ability to get our message out continues to grow, and it's all thanks to their efforts. The first person, unfortunately, isn't here, and she's been our webmaster for, I'm confident, over a decade, and that's Courtney Fresha. Courtney has been the go-to person. She's so easy to work with. I'll send something to her. She's busy. She doesn't mind it if I send her a little ping to say, did you get this? And then when she gets to it, she can put it up. But this year in particular, with the fundraising, we really needed to get things out. And this is the case for everybody, these 3 people. But we'd say, here's the current fundraising, here's the Friday fundraising goal, or the Friday fundraising amount, and she'd change it. I remember one time we wanted to announce that we received the state grant, and my memory is that on Tuesday morning at 8 a.m., Courtney was sitting at her machine to hit go because we didn't want to broadcast it until Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. And so that's just like this year's highlight, but she's been there for years on end. So thanks to Courtney, we have a web page. So. And then the next 2 people got involved with Stow Conservation Trust back with the Harvest Ball, if you remember. Ann Carley was pointed out by Bob as having the appelometer, but she's really been involved for years with the Harvest Ball graphics, with the Run for the Woods graphics, with the infographics that comes with your annual meeting letter. She's easy to work with. Hey, we have this idea in mind, and she'll run with it and say, what do you think of this? And almost always we say, this is fabulous, here, change this or that. And so it's been fabulous. Her graphic it also involves the annual meeting, is the most recent one. So we have to say thanks to Ann for all those graphics. And here we go. Here we go. And then Marianne again got involved with the Harvest Ball, and my memory of Marianne on the Harvest Ball was one year we had it at the Maynard Mill, and we were running out of wine. And so
because of all those crazy Maynard people.
There's Marianne in her ball dress and heels running to Larry's Liquor before it closed to buy more wine for the ball. But she was involved, she did many other things. And then we were like, I think she was like, people do Facebook. And we're all looking at each other and we don't know anything about Facebook. And Marianne's like, I don't know anything about Facebook, but we need to do Facebook. So Marianne learned how to do Facebook. She got her son to work for Facebook so he could donate money to SCT so we could be better at Facebook. But now, so Marianne has for years worked to build the Facebook page. She now has 1,300 friends. And if you're not a friend and are on Facebook, there's a fabulous place to go for wildlife sightings. This fall, she's had several photographs of where she's like, can you find the animal in the picture? And sometimes you can, and sometimes you can't. So But all of that has taken time, and again, with this fundraising business, she too was needing to change and update and make sure things go out. And so our ability to communicate with the town of Stow and beyond has been so enhanced by Marianne's work. So thanks, Marianne.
Thank you, Janet. Thanks very much. That was great, and I just thanks to both of you and to Courtney when she sees this on TV, I guess. It would not have happened. That campaign would not have succeeded the way it did without the communications piece being in place. So thanks so much for your efforts on that and for putting up with all of us as well. So our last recognition is our most significant one. It's our annual Conservation Award. And this is given to a member usually of the local community. I don't know if that's always been the case, but it's usually somebody from Stow who has made truly significant contributions to conservation. And that is certainly the case with this year's recipient. I have had the pleasure of knowing this individual for a long, long time, working together in a lot of different professional jobs in conservation, and then more recently here in Stow. And so there's probably no mystery. The winner of our award this year is Kathy Sfera, the Conservation Coordinator. I think I'm going to echo what I said earlier, that both public conservation entities and private conservation entities each has distinct strengths, things that they can do that the other can't, or not as well, that type of thing. And so when you put the two of those together, is really when you can conceive doing some really big and exciting things. And that's exactly what we've done here in Stow. For a town of a community of less than 7,000 people, to have conserved as much land as we've conserved, to have conserved the pieces that we have conserved, because they're the right ones, and to have accomplished as much as we have in the last year, would only have happened with that type of collaboration and coordination and trust between the two. So we really, really appreciate that. Your commitment is unbelievable, really. You know, in addition to Cornelius and the two farms, she, with some of us helping a little bit, have been advancing a goal to create a town center park, a more manicured park, traditional park, with trails that can be used by seniors and those with accessibility challenges, right in the center of towns, you know, within distance of the library. A whole another project at the same time, if you can believe that. So, Kathy Sfera, the Conservation Coordinator.
I have known Bob a long time. In fact, I taught him all those little PowerPoint tricks you just showed earlier. This has been quite a year, starting with the aforementioned winter storms, through our flurry of land acquisition projects. Bob, I think you highlighted 3 of them, but when the dust settles on 2018, we will have closed 6 projects this year. In addition to the 3 that Bob talked about, we also worked with the Sullivans to protect their piece of Honeypot Farm. That happened way back in January. The 60-ish acres of open space at Regency at Stow, which we now own. And we will be updating Dick Bolton's conservation restriction, which has been just as much work as doing a new one. So all in all, 235 acres, 6 projects, a number of others in the works. And I think some of you may have heard me say this before, but when conservation commissions were created back in the 60s, they really were created for the purpose of conserving open space and protecting natural resources. And it was only much later that they were given the job of protecting wetlands and doing all of that wetland permitting, which for many towns has become all that they do. And one of the things that I'm really proud of about Stow is that we've managed to keep the bigger picture focus and really continued our efforts to do land acquisition and really tried to do some exemplary land stewardship. So I think we're very lucky here in Stow. I think we have a public that really appreciates the importance of all of that. And I really credit 4 major things with our success. One is the Conservation Commission, and a couple of them are here, Sandra, Ingeborg, and Nikki's hiding back there with Stow TV. But we have a great, great Conservation Commission in Stow, and they're very engaged, and they're very supportive of all of our efforts. I have a great staff team with Jackie Goring and Bruce Treffery, and I could not do what I do without them behind me. We work really well together, and they are both fabulous staff. We have a great partnership with Stow Conservation Trust, and as Bob said, I think that trust is very important to our ability to work together. And we both do what we do best, and for the most part, that works really well. And the last thing I'd credit is CPA. I think we would not have been able to do these projects that we did this year without Community Preservation Act funding. I think 3 or 4 of the 6 projects used CPA funds, and I didn't add up the total, but it was significant. And it's great to stand on town meeting floor and be able to present these projects and know that we have a supportive community out there who wants to hear that they're good deals and that they're well thought out and that they're important parcels of land, but is supportive when they hear those answers. So when I told my husband that I was getting this award, he said, "Isn't it your job to be Conservationist of the Year every year?" Thank you, Jim. And I said, yes. So we have lots more planned for the coming year. As Bob mentioned, Town Center Park, we put that project out to bid this week. So hopefully we'll, I know there's a lot of interest. We've been working closely with the Recreation Department, and they've gotten a lot of requests for their proposals. So hopefully we will get some bids that are within our price range, and we're looking forward to having the opening for that project this fall. We expect that it'll be a single construction season. And we also just put out, and I had hoped to bring copies, but I wasn't able to, a brand new updated townwide open space map that reflects all of this great work that we've done this year. So that is up on the town's website if you want to print out a copy, or if you want a hard copy, you come to the office and get one, and we'll make one as big as you'd like. So that's it, and thank you.
Well deserved. All right. Next, I'm going to ask Eve Donahue, our treasurer, to come up.
I'm just going to stand right here. I literally have a minute and a half of information about our financial position for the year.
And the slide is there, just so you know.
And the slide is here if you're interested in numbers. And if you have any questions, see me later. I'm happy to stay and answer any questions. But as Bob said, it was a very big year for us. Certainly the biggest in the 14 years that I've been treasurer. We made a commitment to raise a lot of money for Save Stow's Farms. And with the help of the people in this room, other people in Stow, and a whole lot of grant money, we were successful. It wasn't always clear we were going to be, but we raised this fiscal year over $375,000, and all of that and more, almost $420,000, went right back out the door to pay for mostly land protection. I'm happy to say that 95% of that $420,000 was directly on land protection. So if you donated to Save Stow's Farms, you can be assured that your money did go directly to paying for that conservation restriction. And thank you.
Thank you, Eve. And so I have been involved for years with the Massachusetts Land Trust Coalition. I only mention that because I get to kind of an up close and personal with most of the land trusts, the 150 land trusts in Massachusetts. And let me tell you, almost none of them have a treasurer who is as on top of things as Eve is. And I really mean that too. It's really terrific. I mean, this is so helpful for us to be able to track in real time where we are at any moment in time. And it's not a simple thing to do by any means. So it's very important work, and thank you, Eve. All right, next we have the election. Alan, do you have Alan Fierce? There you are, sorry.
Yes, Mr. President, I would like to nominate and hereby move that the following three current directors whose terms are expiring be re-elected as follows. Cliff Smith for a 3-year term, Susan Crane for a 3-year term, and John San Germano for a 2-year term.
Second.
Okay, any other nominations from the floor? Hearing none? All in favor? Marty?
I move to close the nominations and have the clerk cast a single ballot in favor of those nominees.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Great, thank you very much. And then we have the minutes. Oh, sorry, Alan, pardon me, I know you're not done yet. Sorry.
Yes, in addition to re-electing board members, we have officers of the board that under our bylaws need to be re-elected. And so I again nominate and hereby move that the following current officers be re-elected for another term. Bob Wilbur as president, Susan Crane as vice president, Eve Donahue as treasurer, and Don Rising as clerk.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I move to close nominations and have the clerk cast a single ballot in favor of those nominated.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Alan. Okay, next we have the minutes from the annual meeting last year. I'm sure you've all studied them. We are going to have a quiz on some of the names in the second paragraph. So does anyone have a motion to adopt the minutes as drafted?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, so why don't we do what John Bush was longtime president of the Stow Conservation Trust, and actually I would like to just ask for a show of appreciation for John. And similarly, a show of appreciation appreciated for his wife Donna, who made this event possible for so many years. And in current day, Diane Smith. Let's have a big hand for Diane Smith. Okay, so continuing the tradition that John started of just kind of opening up. What do people, anybody have anything current, conservation update, news that they want to get out on the floor? Come on, somebody has to have something. All right, well, I'll mention one, just hopefully get things going a little bit, but the Community Preservation Act, which has gotten a lot of kudos here tonight. You know, Kathy mentioned just how critical it was to essentially every project that we're doing. That was an idea that took almost 15 years of discussion and debate in Massachusetts before it was finally adopted in roughly 2000. And Stow, I think, was the 8th community in the state to get on board, and we've done very well with that. That framework, which is to have a local surcharge, property tax surcharge, and a state match against those funds raised locally, that idea has taken root in the state of New York now, that same concept. And don't be surprised if you see that go to a lot of other states as well, because it really does work extremely well, where you augment the funds that are available at the local level and you empower all the decision-making at the local level. And you really have as few strings as possible. It just says, you know, it's either to advance affordable housing, open space conservation, active recreation, or historic preservation. It's got to be one of those categories. And so it was nice to see that starting to catch on in another state. Anybody else with anything? No? Okay, I think we will, unless anyone else, any other updates, I think we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you all very much for coming.